approved pre-funding for materials, and Rob or Northwest, you could speak to that and provide that information. But the increase that we're looking for approval from the board is $616,790.69. So go ahead, Sean, or
Sean's there.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone again. It's been a few months. As you see, we've been busy. This in somewhat different than what Maple presented. Our intent is to resubmit a new budget. This is in a sense a true up of end of year invoices that we received from NRTC, Metro Fiber Map. Much of it, or the majority of it, is primarily for NRTC design services, high level design preparation for our next step. So this is really a true up of kind of, we at the time didn't know when we did put this together in October of 21 exactly what those costs are going to be, but now we do. So this is a true up for the remaining budget of 22, and we plan to put forth a new complete budget in March, which just kind of runs the, I think we initially put it in as a 15-month cycle, and that'll be the next iteration of the complete budget will come in March.
What's the dollar amount?
600. Hey, let me pull it back. I just had it here. It's in your board packet, but it's
912.
619,000. Where is it? It's in the it's in my summary.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make the motion.
Yeah, the motion should be for $616,790.69.
Okay.
So you concur with that, Sean?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it's simply minus the materials purchase. We just put the two together, not just the
Laura's
materials
hand
purchase.
is still up. I don't know if that's a.
Oh, okay.
So I
Is
moved.
there a motion?
I did. Somebody
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? None. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or nay? None. Motion stands. You have that adjustment.
Appreciate the board consideration and time, and hope to see everyone soon.
Thank you, Sean.
And congratulations, board. We're right back on schedule. 3:15 was the FICUDA update.
How'd that happen?
Yeah,
All right.
Let's not let that happen again.
It must be
Is
me
Rob-
stepping out. We get back on track. I am back.
Is Rob available?
I am here.
Rob, you want to go ahead?
Happy New Year, all, and it's great to be back. I want to report a little bit of progress, which is always good to share with you in terms of some of the milestones some of the CUDs have hit in the last few weeks, but then kind of talk about the three priority areas where VCUDA is working right now, and they actually map to the three subgroups that we have active. So on the progress front, I'm sure you all saw that on December 21st, CV Fiber had a great launch event in Calais, and is well underway. But the other ones, the two of the next ones I'm not sure you're aware of. One is that DB Fiber did, by the end of the year, manage to get their first pilot group up. And so they have some pilot customers that are testing out their service, and looking forward to expanding from that pilot group and the feedback they received. Similarly, I believe that as of Friday, Maple has its first terminal up and starting to in a position to turn up the first few pilot customers there as well. And finally, NEK is up to, I think there was a number in the 400s last time we met. They're up to 500 passings. And so, there's really great progress out there, and a lot of good news even over the holidays. So it's a great place to start. In terms of
I wish my fellow board members had some way of throwing confetti in the air or doing, fireworks, but
to Clay's point early on, there are lots of things every one of us as a critic and could say we need to improve, but there's a lot of good stuff going on too. So, and this is the sign, this is the proof of it when you start seeing unserved homes having service in front of their doorstep. That's a huge, huge deal. In terms of activities, it was mentioned earlier on the call, VCUDA is planning in coordination now with VCBB, but we have requested to have January 31st, Tuesday, January 31st is a legislative day. There's not a lot of fanfare about this yet because obviously we need to get confirmations from a number of different folks that just got organized last week. And so we're still working on confirming some of the various meetings, but that is the date, Tuesday the 31st, with the idea that we would gather early in the morning and be available to meet with various legislators and tell them about the great progress during the day. We're meeting pretty regularly about that. We've got some drafting to do on some talking points and other things, and we invited Lucy to start joining those groups meetings as well. So that's moving forward. That's one of our working groups. That group has also talked from a policy perspective about a lot of the FCC mapping issues. There is some different opinion about whether or not, in fact, a 30-day delay is a good thing or not for Vermont, based on what we know about the FCC mapping debacle, and it is that for everyone. But trying to sort through whether it's worth the extra effort taken away from other things and whether it'll actually improve the numbers for the allocation is a work in progress in terms of folks thinking about it. I think there was a rumor that there might be an announcement soon about a potential delay coming from either the FCC or the NTIA. It was a rumor. So the second group we've talked about before is the Make Ready Working Group, and just to keep it on the radar, we are looking to meet with the one power company that has had some delays and some questions. I had to cancel a meeting with them right before the holidays because I got sick, but it's back on for next week. And, we're going to keep attention on that. This is one of the items that will delay construction and could raise cost. And so, it does need attention, and we need to, do everything we can to work with those companies to accelerate that and make sure it's smooth sailing for the next 4 or 5 years of activity. So we have a working group on that. The last one is one we just formed as kind of an outreach of the discussions we had about the Northern Border Regional Commission grant and particularly the shared CFO financial activity. And so we've asked each of the CEDs to put forward either board members or finance committee members or executive directors to kind of come together and really finish defining that role. We know that best practice and policies around grants and chart of accounts and other things, as the complexity increases with all these different funding sources, is a key issue there. But kind of really starting to get into the brass tacks of exactly how we're going to do that and what that shared resource works with is something we've started on in anticipation that Northern Borders will come through soon, and we'll be able to start working on filling a role there. So I think those are my major updates. I would say one thing that came up actually this morning, and it's brand new, was just a realization that we still don't know when the NTIA's first $100 million will flow. And we should all be thinking about what we might need to do to make sure that that money can flow the day the state receives the check to the broadband fund and be ready for allocation. So there's just something that came up this morning as something we need to just understand what that process might be and get it on the radar as well. So I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm back, everybody.
I can't hear Patty. Is your volume on?
Yeah.
I can hear her. She's just low.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's very low.
Is that any better?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Rob, I actually have two questions. Do you have specific elements that you're concerned about on the NTIA in prepping for the NTIA funding that you have your eye on?
Me personally?
Yeah, like
yeah.
you're saying, we have to be ready. Yeah, but what do you think? What do you think the big lift is? I know it might be bystander opinion, but what's the big lift?
A mechanical issue. The legislature might have to actually appropriate it, and so we might want we got to figure out when we think it's coming and which session it needs to get appropriated in.
Okay, question number 2 is simply this. So I unfortunately missed the December meeting due to a health issue, and I understand that the board approved staff to apply for the $2.5 million on Northern Borders financing. You're talking about getting people who have an opinion about CUDs in their financial policy and operations together. Do you need to do that in order to apply for that grant funding? And frankly, has the funding been applied for? I sort of think that person or persons needs to be independent of the VCBB. I'm not sure, and I know I'm coming to this as a latecomer. Are you meeting to discuss this because you guys are part of the grant filing process?
So as I understand it right now, Holly, the minutes reflect the board approved you all going, or Rob essentially going on, the other Rob going after getting the funds released. And we've had a couple of conversations. I know that he's working on that, and he needs to speak to the details of where that all stands. On our side, what our recognition is that we think we had in that proposal approximate dollar amount either for a person or a firm for the kind of resources we would need. But in order to go hire them, which we'd like to do as soon as possible, we need to define that better. And you all were very clear about wanting these funds to be used in a precise and an appropriate way. And so this is something we need to do anyway. And so we're trying to get ahead of it so that the day Rob says he has the funds, we can say, how quickly can we move on this?
Just as a quick update on NBRC, they were very excited about the proposal. They had a few questions of elaboration on the budget narrative, and Rob is working on that because it was involving those positions. We just have federal forms to submit and a brand new budget, and we're good to go. It's going to happen as soon as we have a moment to submit all that. So it's on track.
And is the grant recipient VCUDA?
No, the grant recipient will be the VCBB. The funds to VCUDA look to be administered via a grant from the VCBB.
Right. So okay. I won't.
The funds, the capacity funds have to come to a state entity.
Oh, okay.
So.
I hear you.
Go ahead, Laura.
Be happy to work with Rob, Christine, about where that should be, how to get that done.
Okay.
Happy to have you help out, Laura. Great. Anything else? Thank you very much, Rob. Okay, we are now on to staff updates, item 10 on the agenda.
Yeah, so we've, we provide the weekly update on Thursday. So, we really don't have anything new from that update. But, Heron can, the communication media stuff is changing all the time. So we want to make sure that, Heron, if you can address any additional changes that have occurred since that report. I know you've had some requests come in.
Yes, we do have clippings of everything that we have had coverage on since our last board meeting. So if you'd rather I don't go through those, they're all there. If you'd like to read those, we've had quite a bit. We do have another request. We're doing an interview this afternoon with a publication from Washington State. So we have had a significant amount of, we've been included in a significant amount of national coverage on the FCC mapping issues. Other states are also having issues, but it seems like in a lot of these articles, Vermont's also being mentioned. So it's good to see that we're out there. So that is the last thing I think, in addition to what you already have. I can summarize what's there, or you can just feel free to look through the different links, or if you have any questions for me on what we're working on. We've been doing quite a campaign to get the word out to people to file individual challenges. I'm open to questions.
Okay, any questions? All right, hearing none. We go to the
Patty?
dashboard. Yes.
Just a comment. I really appreciate the work and the aggregation of all the media. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Alyssa will do the dashboard review now.
Okay, so we have added a spending tracking to the bottom of the total Act 71 grant funding dashboard. And we also have added funded project progress. So these are statewide overall numbers that we'll be keeping track of. And then we're still working. So because of the FCC challenge process, we've had to kind of reallocate some of the time that's spent on getting these dashboards where we want them to be on that challenge process. That has the end of this week as a deadline, but we did start, this is just kind of a template. It's not the actual data. We need to fix it, but just so you know that we realized a lot of the dashboards, a lot of what we're tracking so far was related to the construction grants, but we wanted a way to start showing the progress of all the millions of dollars that have gone into pre-construction. So we have a form that we're updating our reporting from the CUDs that will give us some of those metrics that we can track just to show make-ready efforts, organizational development materials, along with some of the review process that's happening after awards are made for the construction. And then those final kind of planned versus actuals that will be tracked in multiple places. The final thing, just wanted to show that the other thing we're doing as we're creating more and more dashboards is taking them, and we're going to create a page where they can all be looked at from the same page and clicked through. Of course, it takes a little bit of data processing, so it's a little slow, but that way it is all on the VCBB hub site, but it also will all be on one dashboard that we can link through to different tabs eventually.
That's great. Any comments or questions?
So in a nutshell, when we look at these dashboards, what we're measuring is number of CUDs, grant applications distributed, grant funding distributed to those CUDs, whether it's in pre-construction or construction.
Yeah, and also you're seeing how many people are connected, have been connected.
Oh yeah.
No.
And well, how many households passed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing how many miles are planned, how many eligible addresses and total addresses passed are planned, and where they're at, where the different projects are statewide in actuals
So
to
are you
those planned.
differentiating households passed today from households in the project plan?
Yep. So this is that new tab that we just added. So
Okay.
the first tab that you had been seeing, this is planned on the left side. So that is of the awarded projects, this is what is planned. And then when you go to the next tab, it's showing out of what's planned, this is what's been completed.
So 15, if I'm understanding this right, 15,000 households planned. So that's in awarded projects, and
Correct.
594 households passed. with construction complete.
No, 919 addresses passed. Yeah, 594 eligible addresses passed.
And what is the 919 then?
That's
Oh, total.
Yeah.
So if I was a critic of VCBB, I'd say, oh, only half of the addresses passed are eligible. Roughly.
Yeah, with this report, yes,
At this time.
at this time, yeah.
I'm just bringing this, brings it to life if you interpret it just a little bit.
Yep, that's exactly what the intent of this slide is, to give you that kind of information.
It's good for us as board members to think about whether we feel those are the benchmarks that we want to be judged on. And I don't know, like, Alyssa, this last question, there is a slide there that says of all the money that we get, this is the amount that's been allocated. That's a question.
Can you rephrase that? Sorry.
Yep.
So
Of all the allocations to the VCBB, you have one slide that shows of all the allocations to the VCBB from whatever source, how much of that has been allocated?
Yeah, the term we use is obligated, but you have that.
Obligated, yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And that's that front one. Okay. So in 44 meetings, we've gotten halfway home, more or less.
Yeah, but you put another 2 million on that today, so
Yep.
that'll be reconstruction.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just good to understand.
Yep.
And we're supposed to evaporate as an entity in 2024.
No, 2029 is when we evaporate. We've
Okay.
got, because the BEAD program is a 5-year program, so that clock will start in 2023.
Well, wait a minute. No, we have a statutory deadline for the VCBB.
Yeah, 2029 is their
Okay,
statutory.
that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. We're doing fine. We're ahead of the curve.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the dashboard?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Rob, you better answer this question. I'm getting feedback from my staff that we need to correct Rob V on V. Apparently Rob said something and I didn't catch it. So Rob Fish, could you explain what
Let's have Alyssa explain it in terms of the time frame and how it's going to work. So Alyssa caught that, and we want to make sure that we're as clear as possible with the CUDs and the board and everything of how BEAD is going to work.
yeah, I think it's just the thing that I caught was, as we're saying, when we're going to get the $100 billion allocation, and what we're going to get first is 20% of our total allocation once we submit our initial proposal. And that's just a very different number than us getting $100 million on a certain date.
And is that all planning funding? Is that basically?
No, that's so the planning funding we already have. The 20% is what gets released upon our submission of our initial proposal.
Okay.
And Rob has his hand up, so maybe Rob, you got it.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Thank you for the clarification, Alyssa. I had forgotten that. So, so we have $100 million minimum coming, but they're only going to give us 20% of whatever the total allocation they make in July is. And I think
correct.
And I think that what we had just observed this morning is there is a slight chance that will happen before the end of the year or early next year. And so, that money will be designated to the VCBB, but we want to make sure that we can get access to it. The state doesn't say it's going to take another 6 months.
Correct.
Whatever the number is. So thank you for that.
And I do think, just like building off of some of what Clay mentioned and what I've been following with other states, I do think because of where Vermont is with our plan and our established programming related to the universal service plans and the CUDs, that we will be able to move through the application process slightly more quickly than some of the other states. But it still is going to be a process, and there's still some requirements that are going to hold us back for a couple of months here and there based on what they are having us do.
So along with, I'm going to go back to the dashboard, you know, along with all of the other good information there, and more information is not necessarily more beneficial because it just may confuse things. But I wonder whether there's an appropriate measure for the cost per constructed mile under the grant, like the average and the range. It might, I don't know, other board members can chime in, or it's something to think about. Like, what are we paying out, and whether that's, because if our argument is that funding brings the cost per mile down, and that makes affordability, the real measure would be how much per mile does it cost under grant funding, and how much does an average commercial mile cost. But, you know, we could start with how much are we paying for additional miles of network?
Yeah, the cost for, so just to answer that question, you know, that's certainly something we look carefully at as part of the business plan and the grant application. The cost per mile, of course, the cost per mile is fixed. It's the construction cost, right? But then we look at what I've been doing, and whether or not we report this on the dashboard, you know, we can have that discussion. But we are monitoring what is the grant cost per mile versus the construction cost per mile. There are two different numbers there, right? So, yeah.
And you could report both, but, you know, a lot of transparency would be gained by making that an average number. I can see why you might not want to make it on a per CUD basis, but.
Yeah, it's going to cost a lot more in NEK, for example, per mile than it would cost, you know, say, Southern Vermont. And
that's why you might want to make it a range, and it helps address that concern on legislative parts about, you know, how you know, we don't need more money.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. That's it for staff updates.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Alyssa. Let's move on to public comment.
Okay, Rob Fish, can you manage this for us?
Sure. Is there any public comment? Raise your hand. I don't see any at this point. Oh, we have one. Okay, Charlie Baker, go ahead.
Good afternoon, all. This is my first time here, first time with this board. So just wanted to say hello. I'm the executive director of the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. We've been supporting the formation of the Chittenden County CUD. And I know we're really late to the party. We just kind of woke up a few months ago out of a steep slumber over COVID, and here we are. But I am hoping that you'll be able to help us get started as we're in the startup mode. We had our first board meeting last week just to organize and elect officers. So the RPC staff is going to support it for a while as it's getting organized, and we'll see where it goes. But we certainly have some needs, maybe not as big as other parts of the state, but there are still needs and gaps in our service that we're hoping to work with you to close. And happy to take any questions or anything else, but just really wanted to say hello and thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Charlie, this is Patty Richards. I also wear a hat for the town of Underhill Select Board.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, and the town of Underhill is taking liberty right now to have some conversation about what you're doing and what some of the other CUDs are doing. But who is the executive director for the Chittenden County? Are you in charge of? Who's the reach out? Who's the contact?
Yes, me. You know, I really can't speak for the board as to whether they'll actually have to hire staff or if we can manage along between the board and RPC support. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, yeah, I guess if you can treat the RPC staff as a staff for the board, we'll do that. Yeah, and happy to come and talk to your select board. We already have Jericho requested to join. I think Westford's going to consider it soon. And I know we need to talk to Underhill to see what thoughts you're having. We've also had some conversations with Colchester about adding on. So.
Great to see you form, and thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Public comment is closed.
Okay. All right. That brings us to parking lot, and let's start with parking lot.
Yep, I'll take care of that one. I'll pull up the parking lot here. Can everybody see that parking lot?
Not yet.
Yep.
Let me know when you see it, Patty.
There it is.
Okay. All right. So we had the delegation, the meeting. We're including the dashboards. We have this current item open, established project policy to address issue of enforceability with any of the partners in the CUDs. We're continuing to work on that. And also we will add to the list to talk about affordability at a future meeting. And I will meet with Holly prior to the next meeting to discuss affordability. And so are we saying, I would suggest that we're putting affordability on the next agenda. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And, I work with Patty. The process is, I work with Patty now to establish the agenda, and then we'll get, prior to the board packet. So I think we got that nailed. Anything else that I'm missing on the parking lot?
Good progress.
Exactly. And Christine, this does not need to be in the parking lot, but just a reminder, I'm getting those emails out for the federal delegates and also Clay, just so that we all have them.
Yeah, I think you might have them. Rob, did you get?
Yeah, you should all have them in your account. I sent it as
Okay.
one email that had the federal delegation and Clay. And I think Clay might have messaged directly too.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our next meeting date of February 13th. It'll be from noon to 4. Everybody make that date.
Yes.
I'll interpret silence as we're all good. All right. With that, I'm going to make a motion, unless there's anything else. Go ahead, Laura.
Your sound just cut out, Laura.
You're on mute.
Sorry, just asking the CUDs to make sure and invite, well, I'm sure you're working with Christine. Just making sure the board is aware of the details for CUD Day.
Yeah, we are working with them on that. We will share that with the board as soon as.
Because that'll be
finalized.
before, the next meeting.
Okay. Sweet. All right, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Well done, everybody.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
Thank you.
Bye, all.